This is the OnePlus 7 Pro, and this is, in my opinion, the best all-around Android phone that you can get, and in a lot of cases, even the best smartphone that you can buy right now. I've had this for more than a month now, and here is my full in-depth review with my final conclusion on the OnePlus 7 Pro. So yeah, get those snacks ready, all the popcorn, all the drinks, because this is going to be one long but very interesting video with everything you need to know about OnePlus 7 Pro. And if you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing, and also if you're not new, please do consider tapping the bell icon for notification, because YouTube notifications are quite messed up, and that way you'll be notified whenever another cool in-depth tech videos like this one will be out, which should be pretty soon. But for now, here's everything you need to know about the OnePlus 7 Pro. Okay, so OnePlus is a very unique company. You see, OnePlus only started out in 2014, which is just 5 years ago, by Pete Lau and Carl Pei, both of which actually worked together at OnePlus, where Pete Lau was actually the head of marketing, after which he became the vice president. Now, when OnePlus released their first phone, the OnePlus One, they didn't have any marketing budget and any manufacturing facilities at all. However, with Pete Lau's and Carl Pei's connections at OnePlus, they use Apple's manufacturing facilities actually, which they still even do today, by the way, and they brought the OnePlus One to the market. Now, what was really unique about the OnePlus One was that it was nicknamed the flagship killer, if you guys remember that, due to its very high-end specs, the Snapdragon 801 processor, 3 GB of RAM back in 2014, which was, quite a lot, and even 4K video recording. So I believe that this was actually the world's first smartphone that could do 4K video. However, what was really unique about the OnePlus One was that it only cost $300, which is, or was, about half of what the other flagships did. Now, it didn't have a great camera or many of the features that more expensive phones did, but it was also a very minimalistic device with amazing performance and an even more impressive price. Then came the OnePlus 2 a year later, which increased the cost by $30, bringing the cost up to $330. This was, a bit controversial, not just because of the price, but also because of the lack of NFC and the downclocked CPU and the not so great camera. Then the OnePlus 3 came out, which was $70 more than the 2, now starting at $400, and had 6 GB of RAM, this time an improved all-metal build quality, and it brought NFC back alongside that super fast dash charging. Then came the OnePlus 3S, which they actually called the OnePlus 3T, which started at $440, then the 5, which started at $480, then the 5T, which started also at $480 luckily, then the 6, which started at $530, then the 6T, which started at $550, and now we have not one, but actually two OnePlus phones. We have the OnePlus 7 and also the OnePlus 7 Pro. So the 7 actually starts from £500 in the UK, which is cheaper than the OnePlus 6T did, which is, quite awesome, or $625 converted in the US. You cannot actually buy this in the US, by the way. And then the OnePlus 7 Pro starts at $670 or £650 in the UK. Now, the regular 7 is actually an improved 6T, so we have pretty much the exact same design, improved specs, and improved camera. However, the 7 Pro, this is the big change in every single way. You can actually check out our comparison between the 7 and the 7 Pro here, the detailed video comparing the two, but this video will only be focused on the 7 Pro. And there are 6 sections that I'll be covering in this review: the design, the display, the camera, the performance, special features, and then the battery life. And I want you to keep this price point in mind. The fact that this phone starts from $670 or £650 whenever I'm talking about the OnePlus 7 Pro in every single section. Okay, so starting off with the design. Oh boy, I think the OnePlus 7 Pro is by far the best smartphone that you can get today design-wise. So it's manufactured just like any other premium smartphone, so we have a full metal frame surrounding the phone. Now, it's not stainless steel like on the iPhone 10 or the iPhone XS Max, but it is actually made out of polished aluminum, and it does feel very sturdy and actually quite premium. And then both the back and obviously the front as well are made out of glass. And they both curve around the frame in the exact same way, and the transition between the back and the frame and the front is almost seamless. So you can still feel the frame protruding, but it feels so much more unified than on the Galaxy S10 Plus, for example. Now, when it comes to how it feels in the hand, not that great. So out of all the smartphones that I've used in 2019, which were the iPhone XS Max, the S10, the S10 Plus, the Pixel 3 XL, the Pixel 3a, the Pixel 3a XL, maybe I missed a few, the regular OnePlus 7, the OnePlus 7 Pro actually feels very, very chunky and a bit uncomfortable to hold in one hand, which I don't really like. And you see, it's not just the massive 6.67-inch display that's the cause of this, it's also the thickness of the device. So at 8.8mm thick, this is a full millimeter thicker than the S10 Plus and 1.1mm thicker than the iPhone XS Max. And add a case to this, and your new OnePlus 7 Pro with, let's say, the nylon case, which is my favorite by the way, now measures in at 10mm thick, or 1 centimeter thick. So yeah, this is a pretty thick boy. And then the OnePlus 7 Pro is also quite heavy in the hand. So it weighs 206 grams, which is, by the way, 2 grams lighter than the iPhone XS Max. However, it is 31 grams heavier than the S10 Plus. Now, personally, I didn't really notice the extra weight at all, only the thickness. But some of the reviewers that I've spoken to that also got the 7 Pro early, they said that they didn't notice the weight straight away, so that's something to keep in mind. And the OnePlus 7 Pro also comes in not 1, not 2, but actually 3 colors. So mine's the Nebula Blue color, which I absolutely love. However, if I were to buy my own OnePlus 7 Pro, since this is the one that OnePlus sent over, I think I would go with black. Like, I always go with black on any of my devices, so that's my personal choice, but I do think the Nebula Blue one looks gorgeous, especially the way it reflects the light. And then there's also the brand new almond color, which I do love a lot. I haven't seen one in person just yet, but from the stills that I've seen, it looks incredible, and it's coming out in just a few days. So design-wise, even though I do not like the thickness of the 7 Pro, I love everything else about it, and I still think that this is the best designed phone on the market right now. So much better looking than something like an iPhone XS Max or even the S10 Plus, both of which have obstructions in the display, such as, the notch on the iPhone or the camera cutout on the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, which take away from the viewing experience. Okay, and speaking of that viewing experience, how good is the display on this? Well, I'm happy to say that this is also the best display that I have ever seen on a smartphone to date. So it is a large 6.67-inch AMOLED panel manufactured by Samsung, by the way, with a resolution of 3120 by 1440. So this is OnePlus's highest resolution display yet. And with a PPI of 516, so quite a bit higher than the 458 on the iPhone XS Max, for example, text on this is just crystal clear, and everything you do on this simply looks amazing. Also, we do have a Gorilla Glass 5 display on this one, and not the Gorilla Glass 6 that we have on something like a Samsung Galaxy S10. Now, I actually do have a scratch on the OnePlus 7 Pro after about 3 weeks of daily use, when compared to my S10 Plus that I've used daily for more than 2 months, and it's still pretty much flawless, no scratches on that at all. And since this is an OLED panel, you also get perfect black levels and amazingly rich colors for when you're watching content. But you see, these are not the reasons why I think that this is the best display on any smartphone to date. There are actually 2 reasons why I think that. The first one being the fact that there is no notch or camera cutout at all on the OnePlus 7 Pro. So the Essential phone was actually the world's first smartphone with a notch, but Apple was the one that made it mainstream after they introduced the iPhone X in 2017. And then shortly after, the notch was actually present on pretty much every single Android smartphone, apart from Samsung, by the way. But instead of the size of it having a functional role like on the iPhone X, where we had many sensors for 3D depth mapping in the notch, most Android smartphones only had a notch for a single front-facing camera sensor, and that was pretty much it. But luckily, OnePlus made it smaller with every new generation. So the OnePlus 6 was actually the first OnePlus phone that had a notch. Then the 6T, which launched just a few months later, had a significantly thinner notch, a teardrop notch, and now with the 7 Pro, they've actually removed it entirely. And thanks to this, you can enjoy full-screen content without any interruptions at all. So yeah, this is something that we were hoping to see one day, maybe in 2020, 2021, or even later. But OnePlus has already managed to do it by using Samsung's brand new Infinity display technology. And the frame surrounding the phone is extremely thin as well. So the top and the side frame is actually thinner than on the iPhone XS Max. The only difference is actually in the chin, which is still slightly thicker on the 7 Pro than the iPhone XS Max, but it is still thinner than on the Galaxy S10 Plus, for example. And aside from the full screen design and no notch, the second reason why I think that this is by far the best display on any smartphone is the refresh rate. So you see, on the 7 Pro, we have a 90 Hz refresh rate versus the 60 Hz that we have on pretty much any regular smartphones or computers or monitors. And this means that you actually get 50% more frames for the animations that you see on the display, which basically means that everything you do is 50% more fluid than on any other smartphone. So scrolling through the menus or through a website is buttery smooth. Everything feels and looks amazing. It's basically a 19-day difference from the Galaxy S10 or even an iPhone XS Max. Yes, you do have a few phones like the Razer Phone 2, the Razer Phone 1, or the Asus ROG gaming phone that also have 90Hz or even higher 120 in the Razer case displays, but this is actually the best one since it doesn't have any notch or any cutouts, and it's also an OLED high-resolution, almost 3K display. So because of those two things, the OnePlus 7 Pro actually takes the crown as the best smartphone display yet. No restrictions when it comes to viewing content and extremely fluid scrolling and UI animations. So the only downside that I found in terms of the display is that it doesn't really get as bright as the S10's. And I've also found that the S10's colors are a bit richer and more vibrant when watching content on, for example, YouTube, and we also get better HDR tone mapping, but these are the only noticeable changes and differences that I've seen between the two, and yeah, I had to put them side by side to actually see that. So yeah, other than that, this is honestly an outstanding display. Okay, time to talk about the camera, because this has always been the most controversial point about OnePlus phones. And that's because they offer great specs, they offer great performance, but the downside has always been in terms of the camera. It just didn't compare with, Google, Samsung, or iPhone cameras at all. And yeah, unfortunately, with the 7 Pro, it's still pretty much the same story. So yeah, on the back, we have a triple lens camera module. This is similar to the S10 Pluses or the Huawei Mate 20 Pros or P30 Pros. But here we have a main 48 megapixel f1.6 aperture sensor. However, this one actually never takes pictures in full 48 megapixel resolution, and instead you get 12 megapixel images out of this. Then the second module is an 8 megapixel f2.4 module with 3 times optical zoom, but it's actually 2 times optical zoom, and the rest is actually done with that 48 megapixel sensor. So essentially you get 3 times lossless zoom. And then we also have a third module, which is a 16 megapixel f2.2 aperture sensor. This is that ultra wide angle module, which I really do like a lot since you can get so much more in the shot. However, it's not quite as wide as on the S10 Plus one, and also it's pretty much unusable in low light. It's really bad in low light. Okay, so what are my overall thoughts on the camera? Well, do check out our separate camera comparison between the OnePlus 7 Pro, the S10 Plus, the Pixel 3 XL, and the iPhone XS Max here. But yeah, long story short, in daytime, it's pretty good. It's not bad, it's pretty good. It's very comparable to the competition, still not as good, but close. I did find the images to be a bit too soft, which is ironic considering that these images should be the sharpest of all of them since this is a 48 megapixel sensor. Where the other 3 actually have 12 megapixel sensors. So this should be the sharpest, but it's actually the softest. Then HDR processing is decent. Again, not as good as the competition, but close. I found that the stabilization was incredible on this. In fact, the OnePlus 7 Pro had the best camera stabilization out of all the smartphones that I've tested, so I was really, really impressed with that. Night shots were not bad either. Way better actually than I expected, and also way better than the iPhone XS Max, but still not as good as the S10 Plus or the Pixel 3 XL in most cases. And video was also really good as well. With that superb stabilization, 4K 60 video recording, I love taking videos on this thing. Even though, again, it was nowhere near as good as the iPhone XS Max, for example. So the camera hardware is pretty good, definitely not the best one out there, but still good. However, software-wise, this is where OnePlus needs to do a lot of work. And luckily they actually have. So OnePlus released about 3 noticeable camera updates since it came out, and they've also improved the HDR, the night mode capabilities, even the video recording capabilities. So yeah, it actually is a better camera now than it was at launch, definitely. However, pro tip, if you want to have the best camera experience on the OnePlus 7 Pro, get the Google Camera APK. So this is what Google uses on the Pixel 3s and all the Pixels, and it will honestly change your OnePlus phone camera experience completely. So it's such a huge upgrade. Night sight is now available. So there you go, here's a before and after with the regular camera and the night sight enabled in the Pixel camera app. HDRs are also a massive improvement as well, and while you cannot really get the Google Camera APK officially, you cannot download it from the Play Store, you can download it from the XDA developers forums, so I leave that link below in the description. There's no OnePlus 7 Pro APK just yet, but you can get one specifically tweaked for the 6T that actually works pretty well, and also the native Pixel 3 one. These are the ones that I've tested and they work really, really well, so try those out. So yeah, in that case, it's pretty good. Okay, but what about the front-facing camera? How is it, and more importantly, where is it? Well, in order to make that display truly notch and punch hole less, OnePlus included a camera underneath the display, and it uses a motorized pop-up system, which opens up in just 0.53 seconds, so it's crazy, crazy fast, and there you go. this is the camera on the OnePlus 7 Pro, the front camera. It does, by the way, close automatically in case you drop it, so that's pretty cool. And according to OnePlus, it will withstand over 300,000 openings and closings, which should last you for at least 5+ years if you use it more than 150 times every single day, which, you know, I mean, no one really takes that many selfies. I take like, what, once a month or something like that. But yeah, unless you use it to unlock the phone, which you actually can. Yes, Face Unlock still works on the OnePlus 7 Pro, so it's not as secure as a fingerprint reader. So yeah, I personally would avoid it, but if you want to do that, it actually works and it's really fast. And quality-wise, I really do like this front-facing camera. So it's a 16 megapixel f2.0 aperture, and it actually takes some very good shots. So in some cases, it was even better than the Pixel 3 and the iPhone XS Max. So yeah, camera-wise, good hardware. The software needs more tweaks, but like I said, luckily OnePlus is releasing constant software updates, so the camera will be getting better over time. And considering that this is a $670 phone, honestly, the camera is more than capable enough for that price. Okay, so now what about the performance? Well, I'm happy to say that out of all the upsides that this phone has, the performance is by far my favorite one. So spec-wise, this thing is fully packed. So we have the Snapdragon 855 processor, 128 gigabytes of storage as the baseline, and 6 gigabytes of RAM as the baseline. But you can also get higher configurations with up to 256 gigabytes of storage and up to 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is just nuts on a smartphone. This is actually the one that OnePlus sent over. And I gotta say, this thing is just incredible in terms of the performance. Apps launch in just a fraction of a second, and they also stay open in the background for as long as I could remember. Like, I could go back 15 apps and still find the app fully open, which is just crazy. So yeah, combine this with that 90Hz refresh rate display, the new UFS 3.0 storage, which is currently, yes, this is the only smartphone in the world that has UFS 3.0, which actually gives you read speeds of up to 1.7 gigabytes per second. And also add this to, you know, the OnePlus Oxygen OS, which is an extremely clean and also slightly modified version of stock Android that lets you change the accent colors, the navigation bar, and more. And yes, you have the fastest smartphone on the planet. Yes, the OnePlus 7 Pro is noticeably faster by a big margin than my S10 Plus or the Pixel 3 and even my iPhone XS Max, which costs double of what the 7 Pro does. Also, if you're into gaming, this is an amazing device to play games on. So with a 90Hz refresh rate panel, you can actually play games in up to 90 frames per second. So you can even connect gaming controllers. And yes, you have a 10-layer heat pipe inside the 7 Pro, which helps keep temperatures down during long gaming sessions. So that's really cool as well. So yeah, performance-wise, this is the best smartphone that you can get at the moment for day-to-day use at least. The iPhone XS Max, by the way, is still more powerful for AR and exporting videos and, you know, more intensive tasks like that. But for day-to-day use, the 7 Pro is the fastest one out there. So what about special features? Well, same as with the camera, this is another category in which the 7 Pro lacks. But I'll start with what the 7 Pro does have. So first off, fast charging is insanely fast on this phone. It's absolutely ridiculous. So it actually uses OnePlus's proprietary Warp Charging 30 technology, which, yes, you guessed it, it's basically 30 watts. And you can charge the 7 Pro 50%, up to 50% in just 20 minutes, which is insane. Yeah, that's insane. This is the fastest charging on any phone at the moment. And the charger does come bundled inside the box, unlike Apple's. We also have stereo speakers now, so same as on the iPhone XS Max or the S10 Plus, we have a side-facing speaker on the bottom, and then the earpiece also acts as a speaker itself, and sound quality is pretty good. It's not as good as the S10 Plus or the iPhone XS Max, but it's very, very close. Also, I love the fingerprint sensor on this a lot. So even though it is not an ultrasonic fingerprint reader like on the S10, but an optical one, which is an inferior technology because it just uses a camera rather than sound waves to read your fingerprints, it is actually much faster than the S10 Plus one. Also because of animations. Yes, animations are heavily reduced on the 7 Pro. So overall, this is the fastest and also the most accurate fingerprint reader I've ever used on a smartphone to date. And then I also love the new haptic engine that OnePlus added on this. So it is very similar to the one inside the Pixel 3, which means that you not only get haptics or small vibrations when using some UI elements, but you also get the best typing experience on any smartphone, which is also thanks to that large 6.67-inch display. And then I also love the mute switch, which only Apple uses aside from OnePlus, as far as I'm aware at least. And you can easily mute your phone or turn vibration mode on using a hardware switch rather than having to do it from the UI. However, the OnePlus 7 Pro does lack in a lot of areas which other phones actually do not. For example, if you really care about having a headphone jack, there isn't one here at all. Now, personally, I don't really care about that. I prefer using wireless headphones all day, every day, but I can see why this could be a huge downside for some people. Also, no microSD card support at all, which again, not really a downside for me at all since I mostly use cloud storage, and everyone should today. But if you need more than 256 gigabytes of storage, then a Samsung phone is actually one of the last few options left. But the main downside here, for me at least, is that there is no wireless charging at all on the OnePlus 7 Pro. Now, OnePlus's official excuse for this was that the warp charging is much faster than wireless charging, and I agree, it is much faster than any wireless charging, or even any wireless charging standard that we have today. But after using so many smartphones that do have wireless charging, I've even installed, by the way, wireless charging pads in my home and the office, and the fact that I cannot use my OnePlus 7 Pro with those pads, any of them, is really, really disappointing. You know, you would expect this from the regular OnePlus 7, but definitely not the OnePlus 7 Pro. Yes, wireless charging isn't great, but it's extremely convenient, and for convenience, I am willing to accept a slower charging speed. And then there's also no always on display on this at all, which is another big downside for me as well. So always on is actually one of my favorite features ever in a smartphone. You know, being able to see the time displayed all the time or the notifications without having to tap the display to see them. This is just brilliant, such an amazing feature to have, and the OnePlus 7 Pro doesn't have it at all. Samsung has had it for years, Google even, and yes, even LG, but Apple and also OnePlus, they just don't. Now, you can install some third-party always-on display apps and literally get it working, but since they're third-party apps, they will kill your battery life in a matter of 2 to 3 hours. I just couldn't find one that worked well enough. And also, if you care about water resistance, there is no official rating on this at all. Now, OnePlus did say that they did this in order to keep the cost low, which I do agree. They did add some rubber seals to the ports, so technically it is water resistant to rain and splashes, but we just don't know to what extent. So I wouldn't use this anywhere near a swimming pool or even listen to music in the shower like I actually do at the moment with the S10 Plus or the iPhone XS Max. That isn't that big of a downside since manufacturers don't really cover water damage at all anyways, but you know, it still gives me a peace of mind having an official rating. Otherwise, like I said, I tend to avoid using it anywhere near water or steam. Now, in terms of the battery life, the OnePlus 7 Pro comes with a pretty big 4000 mAh battery, which does last me for quite some time, but it's not as good as the S10 Plus one or even my Pixel 3 XL. Now, it definitely lasts me longer than my iPhone XS Max does, so at least there's that. But yeah, having that insanely fast 50% charge in just 20 minutes is a lifesaver. But it also means that you need to pack that warp charger every single time you travel because, fun fact, since warp charging is a proprietary technology, the 7 Pro does not support the more common USB Type-C power delivery standard, which means that if you have something like a MacBook charger or any other charger USB Type-C, the 7 Pro would actually charge really, really slow. So yes, you need that warp charger every single time you travel if you want that 50% charge in 20 minutes. But again, for me, wireless charging is the biggest downside when it comes to the battery and this phone. Okay, so in the end, what is my conclusion on the OnePlus 7 Pro? Well, it's definitely not perfect. It lacks many features that other high-end smartphones and even low-end ones have today, such as wireless charging, an always-on display, or a great camera. I mean, the Pixel 3a, which actually costs half of what the 7 Pro does, has a much better camera. There you go. But the 7 Pro does have the best display in a smartphone, the best daily performance in a smartphone, the best fast charging in a smartphone, then also, in my opinion, the best Android overlay in an Android smartphone. You know, even better than Google stock Android since it does give you more customization, which I do like, while also keeping things clean. And considering that it does all that at almost half the cost of the iPhone XS Max, wow, I'm impressed. So yeah, good job OnePlus, good job. The 7 Pro was essentially OnePlus's attempt at entering the high-end flagship market, and yeah, they've actually done it. You know, more software updates would improve the camera even further, but other than that, it's a really good phone. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about the OnePlus 7 Pro? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's not? What do you think of the camera, the features, and everything that it offers for the price? And also, if you want to get one, feel free to use, or actually please use the links below in the description. They're affiliate links. You don't have to pay anything, but we actually get a commission from Amazon, small commission, which helps support the channel and, you know, in-depth tech videos such as this one. Also, please do subscribe if you're new to the channel and you want to see more tech videos like this one, in-depth tech videos, and also enable notifications by tapping on the bell icon so that you get notified whenever another cool in-depth tech videos like this one, hopefully comes out. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.